Hi everybody, it's Dr. Joan Ifland here. Just so glad to be with you. We have an incredible topic today, which our Facebook group, Food Addiction Education, picked out. And it is about why we eat so much more in the evening and night. So let's just get right to it. I'm going to go right to the first question, which is an excellent question. So the first question is, I can control my eating during the day, but during the evening and night, all I want to do to eat is eat. How can I stop that? So that's, we're all really interested in like why things happen, but we're really only interested in why things happen because it tells us how to get them to stop happening. And you want these things to stop happening for good. So let's get on it. Think of night eating as the tail of the dog. So if you take care of the dog beautifully, that tail is going to be happy. And if you neglect the dog, then that tail is going to be down. So night eating is the tail end of the day. And if you take care of the day, the night will take care of itself. Now, there are three big things that need to be taken care of through the day. One, and I think this is going to surprise you, is cueing or triggering. So what we know from the research is that overeating is triggered by something. It's triggered, there are lots and lots and lots of different triggers, especially because we've got that tobacco-style food industry constantly bombarding us with cheap prices, and it's everywhere, and you can always reach out and get it. And everybody else is talking about it. So the triggers are massive, but they are manageable. And you do two things about triggers. One, you can train your brain not to react within limits. I mean, once a brain has been sensitized, like every brain in the United States, for example, and most other westernized countries now, thank you, tobacco-style food industry. So once that craving pathway has been sensitized, it will always have a tendency to react by flooding the brain with craving chemicals and shutting down the frontal lobe. So you get this incredible urge, like the locomotive going down the side of the mountain, and then your frontal lobe, which normally would be able to stop you, is not firing. All the energy is going to the craving pathway. This is what the food industry has done to us. And I'm sorry it's happened this way, but there you have it. Okay, so this does take training. Getting a handle on that, just that massive, it's like a cloud of gnats flying around your head all the time. A massive amount of food stimulation in westernized cultures. Getting that under control does require training. You do train your brain not to react to the ones that you can't remove, and you train in how to remove triggers. But that is the big thing to stay on top of through the day. So that's number one. Number two is to stay on top of stress. And this is because as the day goes on, every incidence of stress builds up. And every time you activate that stress pathway in the brain, it's activating the craving pathways, because those two pathways just are really closely intertwined. So if you let stress build up through the day, it is going to be activating that craving pathway at night. That craving pathway is going to flood the brain with craving thoughts, and the thoughts of, no, I don't want to eat that, they just get drowned in that flood of, oh, eat it, eat it, eat it. So you have to stay on top of stress throughout the day. If you are hurrying, that's stressful. If your body hurts, that's stressful. If you're putting on your clothes and your clothes don't fit right, that's stressful. If you didn't get enough sleep, that's stressful. If you're working around people who are talking about processed foods and all their medical problems, or if you're around people who can't quite get their job done, so you're doing their job for them, or you're around people who are irritable, because they're eating processed foods, and processed foods cause irritation, that stress is going to build and build and build through the day. So a couple of things to do about that. One is to get into a group that maybe where you can take a break, like a group that's online, where you can take a break throughout the day and just say, wow, this just happened. Talk it through and let it go. So that's a very good thing to do. The 10 deep breaths, yes, that will help. I think a full minute or two of meditation also really helps. Even just stopping and stretching and moving your arms around will release stress from the shoulders and neck. A lot of stress management techniques. The one that really makes a difference in our culture is to be in a group. So that is, and to be in a group, you know, you have got a private message chat, or you have a Facebook group, and you can get in there and you can talk about what's going on in your day through the day. So it's not like you get to the end of the day and then all the stress is built up. No, you got to like keep coming back to a grounded, calm place. You know, that just use your affirmations and all your exercises and everything. This is something that you can be trained in, but that's the secret. And then the third one, remember the first one was cueing and triggers. The second one is stress management. The third one is food. So food gaps, food stimulation also builds up through the day. So you wake up in the morning, you are reset. Your body has cleaned itself out, the brain has cleaned itself out. There is a resetting process that goes on through the night. You've got better control. You wake up and you're kind of cleared out. And then through the day, cueing and stress builds up, as we've talked about. But the other thing that can build up is gaps in your nutrition and stimulation from food itself. So if you undereat breakfast or you skip breakfast, if you don't eat in that first hour of the day, your brain registers, oh, there's not enough food. This is the very survival part of your brain. No, not enough food out there. So that survival part of the brain is going to start sending get food thoughts into your brain. And so maybe you finally eat breakfast, but it's late. Those thoughts have already built up. What you do in the first hour of the day, if you eat a fully portioned meal, and I'm talking about 6 ounces of animal protein or 9 ounces of plant protein, plus 6 ounces of raw fruit, plus 6 ounces of a very unprocessed starch, and 2 teaspoons of fat. So if you don't get that meal in the first hour, or you do get a meal in the first hour, but it's not full portions, it'll show up at night. It'll show up as cravings at night. Your brain will just like say, oh, okay, well, not enough food out there. If you do eat that big meal within the first hour of the day, then your brain says, oh my goodness, there is plenty of food out here. So we don't have to go look at food. We don't have to go look for food. We don't have to think about food. We've got plenty of food. Let's do something else. So every morning you want to reassure that survival part of the brain, there's plenty of food out here. Don't make me look for food. Don't give me thoughts about food. I'm okay. Now, 4 or 5 hours after you eat that breakfast, you got to eat lunch. You've got to eat lunch. It's 4 ounces of animal protein or 6 ounces of plant protein, plus 7 ounces of vegetables. This is a lot of vegetables. Raw is better because it'll hold you longer, but just clean vegetables, you know, no sauces on them or anything like that. And 6 ounces of an unrefined starch and 2 teaspoons of an unprocessed fat. And then dinner 4 or 5 hours after that, and then a snack. Dinner's the same portions as lunch, and then a snack of 2 ounces of animal protein or 3 ounces of plant protein and 6 ounces of raw fruit. Now, people have all kinds of different ideas about how to pace meals. how to space them out, whether you need all that food. But we are recovering from processed food addiction. And what we need is to be fully nourished. And we also need for our glucose to be stable. And you do that by combining a lot of protein with a lot of fiber and a little bit of high quality fat. Everything very unprocessed as you can get it. You can cook it, apply heat, but don't grind it up and don't put it in a food processor. So those meals are very specifically designed to stop cravings and fully nourish. So the other thing that can happen with your food, in addition to too small portions or not enough, if you're late with a meal, oh, the body just says, oh, what happened to all that food? Oh, there's not enough food now. We're hungry and we're not being fed. So we got to go look for food. Bing, 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 bing. The craving counter just goes crazy if you're late for a meal. So it's just racking up, okay, well, we got to go find food. I'm going to give my human cravings. Now, the other thing that can really set up evening eating is if you get some addictive craving ingredients in your food. So the best thing to do to manage food, to stop night eating, evening eating, is to make all your meals the night before, weigh them out, unless that triggers you. People who have been traumatized by dieting, weighing does not work. So just use an estimate. This is 2 servings of vegetables, 2 fists. A serving of protein is palm of hand, so breakfast is a palm and a half. A serving of starch is about a fist, unprocessed starch. And a serving of 6 ounces of fruit is about a fist. So get that all organized the night before. And then in your busy day, you're not thinking about how to put a meal together. You're just getting out your, it could be a mason jar, any kind of a container, and eating it. You're not having to stop because we're busy through the day. So that's one of the reasons, one of the big reasons why people say that they are controlling their eating during the day. Maybe they're not eating. I think they're not eating enough. I know for myself, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've tried a lot of different things, and I went through a period where I tried cutting back on the protein serving at breakfast. I just said instead of 6 ounces, I'll have 4. Do you know, every night that I did that, I would have restless cravings in the evening. So you just got to think of, there's a craving counter, there's a craving monitor in your brain. And every time you eat late, or you cut back on serving size, or you forget the fat serving, your craving counter is saying, oh gosh, 10 craving points for that, 5 craving points for that. Oh my goodness. And then you get stressed out and you're like, okay, 16 stress points for that. By the end of the day, if you've gone over your craving and stress limit, you'll have out of control evening, because that survival part of the brain will just force you to eat. Frontal lobe, I don't want to eat, I've had enough food. That part of the brain is flooded out with cravings. You can't access it. So you got to keep your craving count low throughout the day. I'm going to tell you, it's miraculous. All right, let me see if I got all my notes. Managing your food during the day. And eat on time, eat full meals, weigh out portions the night before, and then fight like everything with everything you've got is to keep the craving substances out of your food. So it's, sugars and flours and gluten and excessive salt. It's dairy and processed fats and caffeine and food additives. So fight to keep those substances out of your food. All right, you can do this. I know you can do this. Okay, here's the next question. So let me just recap. That question was, I can control my eating during the day, but during the evening and night, all I want to do is eat. How can I stop? Now, the next question is also a really, really good question, and it's a great segue from the first question, which I binge because I tell myself it's my last chance before I start eating clean the next day, over and over. How can I stop? So what's going on here? You better eat everything because I'm going to eat clean, because we're going to start eating clean the next day. That's a craving. That's a very clever craving. That's a very time of day craving. So it's not a craving that your addiction, remember, just think of the addiction as like a narcissist living in your head. It's a sociopathic narcissist, which means it can only think of itself and it cannot imagine. It doesn't have that capability to imagine that what the consequences of its demands are. And that entity has the ability to take over your entire brain. That's what an addiction is. That's what the tobacco companies did to us when they took over processed foods in the 1980s. Okay, so what can you do about this? It's preventive. It's preventive through the day. You've got to get through withdrawal. It's a 4-day withdrawal. Just get into a group that will hang with you while you go through that 4-day withdrawal, help you through the headaches, help you through the cravings, help you through the fatigue, help you through the irritability, help you through the depression, whatever it takes to get through those 4 days. Because what we have seen over the years, and what my colleague, Carrie Willey, says from the great facility, Shades of Hope. She's the executive director of Shades of Hope, and she sees people go through withdrawal all the time. Yes, there is an acute phase. There's kind of a more serious 4 days, and then everything starts to ease off. And one of the things that eases off is cravings. So you've got to get on a good food plan and get into a good support group so that you don't fall apart in those 4 days and lapse. You got to get through those 4 days and stop the cravings. And then really do everything else that we've already talked about. Really do a thorough program around how your exposure to triggers and cues. Do really an evaluation of stress, and then train your brain not to respond to stress, just like you're training it not to respond to cues. And then really make your food the night before, get it all organized so that you are just eating clean foods in full portions on time. And the other thing to do is really work on recognizing the voice of the addiction. So recognizing that the tobacco/food industry is able to teach your neurons how to crave. I'm going to say that again because it's so unbelievable. So the tobacco/food industry is able to teach your neurons to crave wildly, to crave so intensely that it takes all the blood flow from the rest of the brain, and you don't have your rational thought, your part of the brain, the frontal lobe, that says, no, I don't want to eat that. My goodness, I've already had my dinner and I'm not hungry. And no, I don't want to eat that. That part of the brain loses all of its electricity, kind of, if you will, and it all goes over here to the craving pathway. So learning to recognize the voice of the addiction is paramount. You have to do it. You have to know when that part of the brain is chattering away versus your wise, smart frontal lobe. So it's not just, oh, well, this is my last chance. I have to eat everything before it because I'm eating clean tomorrow. That's just one variation of a craving. Other variations are, oh, it's my birthday. or, oh, I deserve it, or, oh, I'm too tired, I'm going to stop for fast food, or, oh my goodness, they made it for me, or, oh, if I don't eat it with them, they're going to think I'm weird. Those are all cravings. Those are all the voice of the addiction, this hyper activated craving pathway that the tobacco industry taught the food industry how to train that to crave intensely and stop this part of the brain. It's a craving. It's a craving. So learn how to recognize the voice of the craving and then do all those preventive things through the day. And you'll find that you're just not craving in the evening and you have perfect control. All right. So next question. So that question was, I binge because I tell myself it's my last chance before I start eating clean the next day, over and over. And I do want to say that I put a question out in our Facebook group, Food Addiction Education, asking how long people have said, I'll start tomorrow. And some people said they've been doing it for decades. This is a very prominent craving. So if you have this craving, you can stop it. It's going to take some support. Having the right people around you is everything. But that's how you stop it. Now, our third question was, why does coming home at the end of the day trigger me to overeat? Well, the short answer to this question is because we have an addiction. And we don't want other people to see that we have the addiction. And under only some specific circumstances can you be active in an addiction. So like if you're a smoker, nowadays you have to go outside to smoke. People can't smoke inside their workplaces anymore. So that's why, that's one of the big reasons why smoking is so much less popular. People just don't have the opportunity to do it. So you have to be in a place where you can exercise the addiction. So this is why people drink at night and on the weekends, because you can't just drink a martini in the middle of workplaces. Maybe in the 1950s, they talk about the 3 martini lunch in advertising and supply lunches. I don't know. But you cannot eat a dozen donuts in your workplace, typically. So first of all, people go home to a private place where nobody can see them. So the home is the place, the home is the place where people can overeat compulsively. Nobody will see them. Just like a drinker goes home to drink, or a drinker goes to a bar to drink where other people are drinking. So you might be in a whole household of bingers. You know, you might be ordering big quantities of food and then people just stuffing themselves, maybe even a couple of times through the evening. So you're getting privacy for the addiction. Evening use is an addictive pattern. It starts in the evening and it might spread out into the day. You know, like a drinker might start having a secret swig of something at lunch. It's in hiding, right? So that's a big part of it. You're going to a place that is secure. It's going to a place where you can get the processed foods. They are at hand. They're easy to get. You can use a lot of them. Typically people go home and they turn on the TV. The TV is just a massive food stimulation trigger. I don't care what the programming is. Research shows that TV stimulates overeating. So if you're in an environment like home, you switch on that TV, that is going to stimulate evening and night eating. And people are tired at the end of the day. And if they haven't been keeping up with stress management and full meals, it's all going to show up when you come through that door. The other thing about a home, which is kind of tragic, is that if you've binged there before, now it is a place trigger. Your home has become a place trigger for binging. So if you drink and you say, oh, I gotta stop drinking, I've got to stop drinking, but you have to walk past the bar on the way home. The bar is a place trigger. That means that the bar is going to activate that flood of cravings, which turns off the frontal lobe. Your home is a place trigger. That means the home is associated with binging, which means when you walk in that door, the dopamine pathways, the craving pathways are hugely activated. They're just saying, oh, yeah, we know this place. This is where we binge. Okay, craving pathways, release that flood, turn off the frontal lobe, and there you are. It's automatic. It's conditioned. It's like, you get out the dog biscuit, your dog sits up. That's what brains do when they have been trained. And millions of people's brains have been trained to activate when they get home. So it's not your fault. I mean, that's just the one thing I say over and over again. You did not ask for this. You did not ask for all these triggers to be in place, to be, woven into what should be your sanctuary, your home. But now they are. Now they are. So what do you do about it? Well, it takes training, and it takes retraining. So I know, for example, I drove to work a certain way for a long time, and then there was construction. But I will tell you, I still turned right to go down the road that was closed many times before I remembered, no, you can't go there. I was conditioned to turn right when I actually needed to turn left. So we are conditioned to crave. It takes training and repetition to train the brain not to have that reaction when you come through the door at home. So this is a very, very sad thing about processed food addiction is, we were accustomed to going home, turning on the TV, eating dinner, visiting with our family, having private time, downtime, nothing else to do. People have done that for decades. So why all of a sudden is there massive epidemic of binge eating at night? Well, because when the tobacco/food industry started putting addictive substances in large quantities in our food, we were getting those substances at that higher volume, high enough to create addiction at home in the evening. So again, it was kind of an incidental, opportunistic process. We were already doing these things normally, under control, no problem. And then boom, secretly, all these addictive substances were introduced into our food. And that's where the addiction blew up. So that's what happens. And now we're conditioned to binge when we get home. It's very sad. Okay, so those are the top questions. The other questions are, why does this go on through the night? And it's because your blood sugar is very unstable through the day if you're eating processed foods, and it will continue to rise and crash during the night. It's a kind of a fight between the pancreas and the adrenal glands. Not really a fight, more like a dance, a dance for life. Pancreas trying to keep the glucose down, adrenal glands trying to keep it back up so that it stays within a safe zone. But you can definitely crash during the night. And then that reptilian brain will just take over and force you to go eat. Yeah. So does dieting make this worse? Totally, because dieting is nutrition deprivation. And so remember that reptilian brain is counting, we didn't get enough to eat, we didn't get enough to eat. Oh, there was something weird in our food. What is that sugar stuff? I'm just like, it builds and builds and builds through the day until the brain is flooded with cravings and you're eating at night more than you want to be. Okay, so we also had a question about circadian rhythms. And I do just want to briefly touch on this because this could be a topic all in of itself very easily. So basically, the circadian rhythms are the part of the brain that do things according to the clock, if you will, and according to light, and according to time of day, even time of year. So circadian rhythms control 30% of genes. 30% of what we're about is being driven by time of day in a cycle. There's circadian rhythms. So it's one big rhythm. And that means that sleep, which is driven by circadian rhythms, is very tied into eating. So eating and sleep are two activities that are driven by circadian rhythms, by that part of the brain. So if you don't sleep well and your circadian rhythms are chaotic, then they will drive chaotic eating. And by the same token, if your eating is chaotic, then your sleep will be chaotic. So really, one of the very first things to do is to fight for your meal times. Even if you're very, very busy during the day, if you have your meals ready the night before, and even cutting them up into bite-sized pieces, like I've worked with nurses over the years, we would just put their food in bite-sized pieces into baggies that they could fit into the pocket of their scrubs. And they could just duck into a supply room, or duck into the bathroom, or, just find any kind of a private place. And because it was always already cut up, they could eat a lot of that. I know you're not supposed to eat fast, but it's better to eat fast and get full nutrition than it is to skip nutrition, because that will show up. However many calories you have skipped during the day, you will eat 2 or 3 or 10 or 100 times that night, because the stress and the momentum builds up through the day. So that's my little note about circadian rhythms. The other thing that's very surprising, because I did the research for this program, is that having a light on at night messes up your eating, because your body doesn't start to produce sleep hormones called melatonin until it's dark. And it turns out that melatonin has a big role in regulating insulin. So if melatonin is not being produced and insulin is not being regulated, more of your food will go into fat cells. Even if you eat the same amount of food, if you've got a light on during the night and your body's not producing melatonin, 2 people can be eating the same amount of food. 2 laboratory rats can be eating the same amount of chow. The rat that has lights on at night will gain weight, and the rat that is sleeping in the dark will not gain weight. So please get those screens out of your bedroom. Go to bed on time. Going to bed on time and getting screens turned off is a really good foundation for getting your food under control. All right, you guys, that's a lot of information in a short time. This is Dr. Joan Ifland. You guys know me. I am hosting the Facebook group, Food Addiction Education. Please follow me on Twitter at Joan Ifland. That's at JoanIfland. And yeah, please just follow this. We make announcements for these webinars all the time, and you are so welcome to join us. I would recommend joining us live. This is clearly a summary of a very rich, lively, wonderful conversation we had this afternoon live on Zoom. So join Food Addiction Education or at Facebook, or follow us at Joan Ifland on Twitter, and you will get announcements for the webinars, and you're just so welcome to join us. I love helping people. I love being out there. I've been at this for 23 years. I earned my PhD. I wrote the textbook with one thought in mind. I would be able to help you get out of a big mess, like I got out of the big mess of processed food addiction 23 years ago. All right, I'll see you next time. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.